Monday, week 6, the 10th class period that we've had. This is NET-134 IT Essentials. We spoke a little bit about focus on learning. The next step for focus on learning is the teacher's perspective. Remember, that's in the NIAC Canvas. We looked at maintenance materials. So we did a peer review, so if you weren't here, you should go back into that assignment where we gathered up all the materials for maintenance, and you should do a peer review. Then we spent the rest of the day networking items. Now on Wednesday, Jim Deegan's going to give a tour starting at 8 o'clock of the campus network. Then after the tour won't take the full time. It might take like an hour and a half. And then when we get back, I'll have a form. I don't have it made yet, but I'll have a form for a network report. And then maybe if there's time, the students could discuss focus on learning a little bit. But mostly it'll be finishing up the report after the tour. So any Chapter 5 tests and so forth, we will not worry about that until next week. Alright, so we did this maintenance work, and then I talked about this massive online open courses. I'm not sure if I got the O's in the right order. But in those, you can take a course online about a lot of different things. And some big universities produce them, and some of them are produced by smaller schools, but typically they're free, and there's a lot of peer review in some particular ones of those, where students look at other students' work and review how they're doing. We did a little bit of that right here. The models, TCP, IP, we talked a little bit about that. Those protocol suites that allow us to communicate on the internet. In the OSI models, these are models or visuals to help us understand how networking works. The TCP IP model has an application layer, transport layer, internet layer, and network access. These are broken down a little bit more in the OSI model. So today we used both a browser and PuTTY to link into the application layer. We did SSH when using PuTTY, so that was secured, so there had been encryption done as we present the data. Moving down here as we present the data. We used the browser, we used HTTP, which would not be secured. That'd actually be port 80. We didn't really talk about the session at all. Transport layer, TCP, UDP. Checks to make sure it all gets there. This would be more like for streaming, it just sends it. How to send the data is a generic way of talking about this, and we break it into segments and give them port numbers. The network layer is we're looking for the best path through a network so it gets routed, and this is where we look at IP addresses. In the big picture, then, this is called a packet. So we have a segment, then we have a packet, and going into the segment was the actual data that we're sending. And so it gets encapsulated inside these different things. And then we get to the data link layer, and this links devices together and typically uses media access control address, and here it's referred to as a frame. then we figured out a way to put it on the media, right? Waves in the air, put it on a wire, or light inside a tube. That's basically how that works. So I'm going to keep moving. A bunch of terms. You can go back and look at these. Personal area network. Local area network we've been dealing a lot with. A LAN, local area network. We haven't done much except using the internet to look at WANs. WAN is over a longer geographical distance, and most of the time you have a service provider that helps you connect those long distances. A virtual private network is a way to send stuff, for example, through the internet and secure it. VLANs, we talked about those. We can have a virtual LAN, so we can have two different networks actually send information across the same wire and through the same devices. We'll learn more about those later on. And then a wireless LAN, we talked about that. We actually did some work with wireless LANs. Talked about broadband, DSL, cable, or in a lot of places they have fiber right to the house. How do we measure? Measure speed or bandwidth by bits per second, and then quantity by bytes. So you might have a data plan that's 1 gigabyte or unlimited data. Okay. Bandwidth is how much fits into the pipe. Here we're talking about how much data total. Quantity. This term up here, intrusion protection, we'll talk about that here in just a minute. Moving over here, the students opened up PuTTY. That's open source software. We discussed that the source code is open for people to change and adjust and so forth. Then that is turned into, we either compile or interpret it into an executable code, something the computer can execute. We used PuTTY to log into, and I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. And then we used, once we logged in to Linux, we could change directories, and then we used Nano to edit a file. File representing our web page. So when we logged in, we used last name, first initial. For example, for me, it was Dirksen. It varied a little bit for one of the students, otherwise, then the password is right here. I already talked about open source, source code getting compiled or interpreted into executable code that runs on a particular operating system. Our last picture. Okay. So this was the address. It's a private address. That's the IP address on this particular Linux box running Apache web server. So we, from our PCs, we were able to access that. So from our PC, we literally went like this through the firewall and we were able to access. Now, if you want to access that from the internet, you would have to use the public IP if you were going to access it from the internet. So you're logged into the internet from your house. You can use this address, and you could download PuTTY, or there's some other terminal software you could use to access that. Now, where we accessed it from was this private address, and we went to a different network that was on this private address. And you can tell they're different networks because the prefix bits or the mask 255.255.0.0. This is 8 ones and 8 ones. That's how we get to 16. But you can see this first octet means this and this, those two. So that part's the network. Now this one's the same thing, so this is the network. Now they don't match. This one doesn't match the one up here, so they're on different networks. Now we talked about a few other things, so let me talk about that. DHCP and DNS servers, they're over here on these Windows servers, and we took a look at those virtual machines that were in the back of 216. Yeah, these are the back of 216. And they are connected to the multi-layered switch, and we looked at that also, and that was in PC 228A or whatever. It's that wiring closet, so I can write that down here. PC 228, where that device is, and the firewall are in that room. Here's 229, there it's connected here. 216, it's also connected. This is a layer 2 switch. It works with MAC addresses. A multi-layered switch can do both routing and layer 2 switch functions. That's why yeah, here we go. Actually, it does more than that. Okay. So then we talked a little bit about the firewall. I drew this red line in here. So the firewall stops traffic trying to come in from the outside unless we made a specific way to get in, which we did. I'll use another color. We have a specific way. It lets HTTP and secured shell, it allows it in to the server here. So you can be out here on the internet and you can access, using the public IP, this particular server right here, because we allow that in. Now anything else trying to get in will be blocked. Now you say, how does this PC get out to the internet and then that traffic back in? When it goes out, we create a hole, so to speak, for the traffic to come back in that matches that traffic. So if you go out to a website and you're doing web work, that traffic can come back in. If you go out and check your email, then it allows that email traffic back in. So, not completely secured, not bad either. Well, I think I am going to, oh, I mentioned one more thing here. This goes out to the ICN, Iowa Communications Network, which connects to the internet. And during the tour, that'll get mentioned. And then on main campus, for example, we have an access point in our room that connects into the main campus. Then the main campus connects here and goes out to the ICN also. One last thing, we have a site in Charles City, so the campus can use, I assume they do this, I don't know for sure, but you can create a VPN that allows you to encrypt the information here, send it through the internet to another location. They really work well, but you're still at the mercy of the internet. That is it